Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Tara, Tara Vesey-Rackley, the current chair for the Pharmacy PC, so welcome everybody. Hopefully some of this will be helpful or informative or just a good discussion. So this is our agenda. We're going to talk about who we currently are that's involved in the Pharmacy PC group right now, a little bit of statistics about membership in the society as a whole, some discussion about the meeting coming up in Boston, and some planning ahead for future opportunities. And then hopefully we can just have some discussion, kind of introduce ourselves in a casual way. So I'm hoping that this is a review for a lot of people, but in case anyone's not familiar, this is a kind of a quick breakdown of the society. Hold on, oh no. I feel like I'm looking to the left too much for my camera. Okay, so we are broken down into what we call PCs or professional communities, as well as the interdisciplinary networks or IDNs. So we as pharmacists would be the pharmacy PC, and that's kind of like our practice type. And then you see the different ones. You have the surgery, pathology, pulmonology, cardiology, etc. And then within that, all of us practice in the four interdisciplinary areas, which are key to ISHLT as a society. So that's pulmonary vascular disease, things like pulmonary hypertension, the advanced lung failure and lung transplant, advanced heart failure and heart transplant, or NCS. And certainly as pharmacists, we often may overlap over more than just one of those. So keep that in mind, because that falls into how all of us have our roles as the representatives for the pharmacy community in particular. So I'm Tara. I am, like I said, the chair currently for the pharmacy professional community. And then I also serve as our representative to the Advanced Heart Failure and Heart Transplant Interdisciplinary Network Steering Committee. And then you'll see all the other members. I'm going to have each of us introduce ourselves if everyone's on, and if not, we'll tell you a little bit about them if they weren't able to join. But I also wanted to say where I'm from and kind of how I got involved in ISHLT, and I think we were all going to try to share that as well. So I live in Pittsburgh. I work as a heart transplant pharmacist at Allegheny General Hospital. I started to attend the ISHLT meeting as a resident in 2016, I think was my first meeting. And one of my mentors in residency was very involved in the society. And he was actually the chair of what used to be called the Pharmacy Council. So that was before the reorganization with the IDNs and all of that. So he really introduced me to a lot of the other pharmacists, many of whom are still very involved today. And that's kind of how I got my feet wet, so to speak. Some different things that I've done along the way to get to this point. I volunteered to review abstracts pretty early on. We used to have something called the education workforce, but now that's just another way of saying helping submit symposia ideas for the upcoming meetings. And then after doing those two things, I eventually was invited to be on the program committee, which was a really cool opportunity to see how the program comes together. And we have some of our program committee representatives, hopefully, to tell you a little bit later about what they do now, because that process may have changed a little bit since that time. And then when the reorganization happened, I was then invited to be the pharmacy representative to the early career and trainee committee. So I did that for a period of time and actually had the opportunity to chair that committee last year until I got the current role that I have now. And I will hand off to Patricia. I think she's available on the line to introduce herself. You may be muted.
Can you hear me, Tara?
Yes.
Oh, great. Yeah, so my name is Patricia Ging and I'm a pharmacist in Dublin. So going back to how I got involved in ISHLT, I suppose the first time I was invited to do something, I just presumed it was a scam, because what would they want to have to do with me? So I had to unfortunately, someone had to invite me twice. So just like if you get an invitation from ISHLT, and I hear that from a lot of pharmacists, that they don't know if it's real or they don't think that they can do it. If you ever get any invitation and you're not sure what it's going to involve, or you want a bit of support to take it on, just ask one of us. We're really, you've probably been suggested by someone already in the organization to take on this role, so we know you can do it. So, just always consider anything that you're offered, because there are always great opportunities and you get a lot of support. A bit like Tara, I reviewed abstracts. Then I was invited to be on program committee, where you plan things for the the annual conference. And that's a great way to meet people, to think about things in a more collaborative way, and to be exposed to new ideas outside your centre that develop you in your career and your ability to care for your patients. And then what did I go on to then? Yeah, standards and guidelines, which was always the thing I thought I wouldn't want to do. So in standards and guidelines, we help to shape who's on writing the guidelines, what guidelines get written, and just making sure that they're of high quality when they're published. And again, that's something that I didn't think I'd be good at, but it turns out I was probably all right at it. So again, just ask any of us, if you're not sure about taking on an opportunity, or if you want a bit of encouragement, or if you want a bit of help with something. We're really supportive of helping pharmacists to grow in the organisation. So that's all I want to say, and time for the next person.
Hi guys, it's Amanda. I'm actually on now. Can you hear me? Yep, okay, good. I as well started as an abstract reviewer. I did that for a couple of years, and then I ended up writing a symposium, and I think everybody has a different pathway up, but I would say that getting a symposia together, it's kind of a lot of work and in a short period of time, and it's very daunting, especially trying to come up with speakers. But that's how I kind of made my way into the community, both this community, which is an awesome group of people. You get input from across the world. It's honestly amazing. And I've just kind of been involved in different pieces and parts as I've been introduced to them. So I guess I want to keep it kind of short, but making a symposia, abstract both writing, but reviewing too, is a great way to get involved. And yeah, any of us are very happy to help.
Amy, are you able to get on right now, or do you need us to skip by and come back? She may not be able to talk just yet, or she might be muted. Let's go to Faye, and then we'll come back to Amy after Faye and Bailey and see if she's able to speak then. So Faye next.
I'm Faye Burrows. I'm a heart and lung transplant pharmacist from Sydney, Australia. I've been involved with ISHLT for quite a while. My first meeting was in 2013 in Montreal. And then after that, I got involved with reviewing abstracts, and then was asked to be on the program committee for lung for the virtual meeting in 2021 and Boston 2022, which was as everyone else said, a real opportunity to get more involved with the society and to meet people and to learn from everybody else with their experiences with ISHLT. So I'm currently the pharmacy member for the Advanced Lung and Transplantation Interdisciplinary Network, and I'm the chair of that committee for this year. So my advice for everyone would be, if ISHLT asks you to get involved with something, is just say yes, because I've really had a really great experience from being more involved with ISHLT and working with all these wonderful people from around the world.
And then Bailey, are you able to speak?
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Bailey Colvin. I am an advanced heart failure pharmacist, and I do pulmonary hypertension as well at Morgantown, West Virginia. I got involved in ISHLT because Ed Horn, who I think is talking later, was one of my residency preceptors and kind of suggested I get involved. And then kind of similar to most people, it seems like I did abstract reviewing. It's very easy and like low amount of time involved, which was nice. And then because I did that for a couple of years, I was invited to do the programming for pulmonary hypertension. And Amy, who may talk later, actually kind of mentored me through that, which was nice, which kind of landed me into this early career and training committee position. I feel like I am very young and early in my career, so I didn't expect to be involved so early. So I would say, like, for everybody who is young on the call, like, there are definitely plenty of opportunities.
Yeah, and ISHLT intentionally tries to involve early career people, which is something that we'll talk a little bit about when we talk about the symposium. So there's roles specifically for you. So Amy, are you able to speak yet? And if not, I'll do my best to introduce you. She must not be able to unmute or be able to speak right now, but I'll do my best. So Amy's been involved for a few years now. I don't know when she first started getting involved, but she also got started as an early career member and has been involved. She's our current representative for the PVD section or IDN, but I believe she practices both with heart and lung transplant as well, specifically in pediatrics. And has been involved with a lot of symposium proposals. She's been on program committee in the past. And she has been doing a great job. And she was actually the chair last year before me for pharmacy PC, but she's rolling off her current position. And we will actually have Heidi joining. I don't know. I didn't see yet if Heidi was on the call. I don't know if Heidi wants to be put on the spot or not, if she is on the call. But if you're able to introduce yourself quickly, you can.
Sure. Hi. Yeah, let me find my camera. My name's Heidi Brink. I am the pharmacy specialist for heart and lung transplant at Nebraska Medicine. I also do pulmonary hypertension. And I'm really excited to join the committees this year.
So yeah, Heidi will be our new representative from a pharmacy standpoint for the PVD IDN starting after the meeting in Boston. Okay, so that is all of us that are on the current pharmacy PC, I guess, committee representatives. We do have other pharmacists, however, that are involved in the society. So some of you may recognize a couple of these people. We have Haifa, who is actually on the board of directors currently, and she's also on the finance committee. And then a few people may recognize Mike, who is currently the Statements and Publications Oversight Committee Chair. And then we have Ed Horn, Patricia and Mike, as well as Patricia Huber. We also have a Stephanie Wittek, who all have roles on different committees. So I have all their names listed there. But Haifa and Mike have gone through a lot of different positions and have mentored a lot of us. That's kind of why their photos are listed as pharmacy beacons, so to speak. So this is just a little bit of a breakdown of the society as a whole. So I think, to quote Amy from this last year, we are a small group but mighty, or something along those lines. That's a paraphrase. So we're only 4% of the total society, but we try to infiltrate ourselves into all the different areas. Like Patricia said a little bit ago, there's different roles and committees. She's done standards and guidelines. We have somebody on the board, and we have had Mike on the board in the past. So we try to represent ourselves anywhere we can. And I think there are a lot of opportunities for pharmacists, and the society has been very welcoming to us, even though we are in numbers small, not small in voice, I would say. This is another breakdown of some of the demographics of the overall society. So as you can see, the largest group within the organization are physicians, of course. So we are part of that non-physician group, as well as we do certainly have some trainee members. Let me double check the chat. Oh yes, Patricia Huber was also on the board previously. That was maybe before my time. I don't think I was involved yet. So we've had pharmacists on the board going back longer than I've been involved. Okay, we do have more physicians obviously in the society total, but we are one of those non-physician members, as well as some trainee members. North America is, of course, still the largest representing area, which is why when we talk about symposium proposals, we try very hard to try to include non-North American representation, just to get perspectives from around the world, because we are an international society. And then when we look at those interdisciplinary networks, the advanced heart failure transplant is the largest percent, knowing, of course, that some people overlap into multiple of these. Advanced lung is second largest, and then MCS, with the PVD group being the smaller group. Okay, so this is going to start talking about some stuff coming up at the meeting in Boston, which we hope a lot of you can join. But even if you can't, there are a lot of opportunities virtually and in other areas as well in the future. But coming up at the meeting, we will have an in-person pharmacy get-together at 6 p.m., anticipated to be on Tuesday of that meeting. They break it down by the different PCs, different days, so you can see the other ones overlap. So we'll look to look for you there. Hopefully, I think there's supposed to be beverages or some sort of refreshment so we can just have a casual kind of discussion and talk about some updates of what's going on from a pharmacy standpoint in the society. And then also there are idea and breakfasts this year. So some years it's been lunches, some years it's been breakfasts. So it's kind of early, but you'll see updates about those different groups on Monday and Tuesday. And again, there is unfortunately a little bit of overlap. I know as pharmacists, we may practice in all of these areas. So for the IDNs, you may just have to pick the ones that you feel like you do the largest bulk of your work with, because it's possible that you may do heart, lung, and MCS and PVC. So that's just kind of how the timing worked out. There's an announcement here about the pre-conference workshop. So if you're interested in learning more or practice a lot in any of these areas, these are the day before the meeting. So this year's meeting falls a little different than previous meetings. In the past, it started midweek and ran to Saturday. And this year it's starting on a Sunday and running into the middle of the week. So the Saturday before that Sunday is when these workshops fall. So if this stands out to you, or, you know, a trainee that you work with or someone that you think would be good for these sessions, you can kind of pass that along. I wanted to speak a little bit about our webinar. So every year, each of the PCs puts together a webinar. Some of them are still upcoming, or the data wasn't back yet whenever this slide was put together by the society and shared with me. But ours was in November, so ours did already happen. We had 65 people register, 30 people attend live, but already over 100 views on YouTube. So that is still available to view on YouTube. We know being international time zones don't always work out, work schedules don't always work out, but if you didn't catch the webinar, it was excellent. So this was what was who the presenters were. Amanda was one of our moderators, as well as Richard Woody Lincoln was another pharmacist moderator. And then we had all of the speakers did a really phenomenal job. So if you go to the ISHLT online on the website, you can find past webinars and you can find the link to the YouTube recording. So you can still go back and watch this at whatever time you would like. And I'm going to hand off to Bailey to let people know about some early career opportunities.
Yeah, thanks. So for those of you who don't know, early career and trainee in this society includes up to 6 years post-training. So I feel like that extends a little bit more than what we're used to in pharmacy society. So if you're within 6 years of training, you're considered early career. What we have going on this month, we have a webinar coming up. So on the 18th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's supposed to help you kind of develop how your CV should tell your story and how you should use that to get grants, research, the stuff like that, as well as jobs, because it's a multidisciplinary society. It'll have physician representation, and then Ed Horn, along with a nurse practitioner, will kind of be the other society representation who are non-physician members. So I think it'll be really cool to get other people's perspectives. So please join if you can, or watch on YouTube. We have a lot going on at ISHLT 2025. So if you guys are able to come to these, I'll be there. I'd love to meet some of you in person. On Saturday, we're doing a reception at 6 p.m. And we purposely made this earlier so that way you can meet people right away and kind of buddy up if you want to, and go throughout the society meeting that way. We're also planning to do kind of like a scavenger hunt, which I think we'll talk about at that Saturday reception. So if you go to all these different early career and training committee events, then you will be entered in to win a prize. So just an incentive to come hang out. On Sunday is the bulk of our events. So 7 a.m. if you are signing up for the meeting, you can sign up for the first time attendee orientation breakfast, which is nice because you kind of just meet people off the bat, especially like other members in the society who aren't pharmacists. And then my first year, I buddied up with a cardiothoracic surgeon from Germany, and we went to a lot of things together, which was kind of nice. So would suggest doing that. It's free. It's just like fruit and bagels, but it's nice. At 1:15 p.m. our symposium, Making the Teamwork Together, is for ECTC, and we'll kind of go through working in a diverse, multidisciplinary workforce and how to kind of build your transplant or otherwise team. So that should be exciting. And then that night we have what's called the mentor meetup. Used to be called Meet the Experts, but we dropped that name this year because we weren't sure if it kind of made people a little hesitant to join. But basically it's just a networking event. So a round table, kind of like speed dating, but speed networking, which I'm sure a lot of you have been to before. So I hope to see you all there.
Thank you. So now we will move to talking about different opportunities for pharmacy involvement. And a lot of this will look familiar based on what a lot of us said we did in the past, because these are a lot of the ways that we kind of worked our way into getting our foot in the door. But look out for an interest survey coming up right after the meeting. We tend to try to send it out right after the international, the meeting in Boston this year, and then probably have it open for about a month or so, give or take, to try to gather names of people who are interested. And so some of you have definitely filled this out in the past. I see some names I recognize, but if you didn't, or if you know other people who would be interested in being involved, please pass it along. This is where a lot of our program committee members will pull names for speakers and moderators when they're helping work on that. As we work on webinars or other opportunities that come up and people ask us, we need a pharmacist representative to XYZ, we'll look at that to try to find people who would like to be more involved. So definitely please look for that and fill it out. Symposium proposal submissions, we're going to talk a little bit more about what that means, because like Amanda said, it can be pretty intimidating if you've never done it before, but it is a really great way to get involved. So we wanted to devote some time to that. Last year, at least, they had an opportunity to sign up to review symposia proposals. I don't 100% know for sure if they'll do this again or not, but that might be something to look out for around that same time of year. Typically, if you signed up to be a reviewer, you couldn't submit a proposal though, so you kind of have to think about which one if that is an opportunity again. Abstract reviewing is also a really great kind of like early level commitment of trying to get a little bit more involved. And also, if you ever are going to be invited to the program committee in the future, they tend to look for people who have reviewed abstracts in the past. So something to think about signing up for as well. That call will come out. Usually the work is done in the fall, so the call may come out late summer, early fall. You can obviously work on any kind of research you may have and submit an abstract so we can have good pharmacy representation with those for the future meeting. There will be standard and guideline document opportunities periodically. So as those things kind of come up, or if you have an idea for something you think needs to be updated, you can reach out to any of the representatives from the Pharmacy PC or from the interdisciplinary networks. Those tend to go through IDN eventually, but we can pass that along through what we represent. And then they also have a call in the fall. I think last year was the first year, so this will be coming up again, to submit ideas for the IDN webinars. And that's kind of a similar thing to submitting a symposium proposal. But if you don't think you'll have it ready based on the symposium deadline, you could possibly get something together for the webinar deadline. Okay, so a little bit more about symposium proposals. Because that deadline comes up really soon after the meeting, you can start to brainstorm ideas while in Boston if you're there. If you're not there, still brainstorm ideas. But if you are there, it's a really good chance to find other colleagues to collaborate with and, maybe see where there's some stuff that was discussed, but there could be more room to discuss it more, or maybe somebody has a poster on something that could lead to a good symposium idea. Whatever the case may be, something that you feel like you have questions about, and you can start to make notes about those, on paper, on your phone, whatever works for you. There will be information coming out from the society shortly after the meeting about exactly what they're looking for symposium proposals, because that can change a little bit year to year. So what we did in the past may look a little bit different for the next year. But there's typically a symposium proposal guide, which will give you details as to when the deadline is, how many, minutes each one's anticipated to be, how many presentations can be in it, that sort of thing. And there's usually also a template to kind of guide, how many talks for a 1-hour session or whatever the breakdown is. There's usually some meetings that the IDNs, as well as hopefully the PC as well, will put together where we can collaborate and try to answer some questions. If somebody is trying to work on one and doesn't know what to do, we're happy to try to help you. Each IDN is a little bit different as to how they do that. I know the MCS in the past, Amanda may be able to speak to that as well, but they've kind of, do you want to go ahead and jump on and say what you've done in the past?
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that. So in the past, the secret is that if you put together a proposal, you're likely going to be used as a speaker, maybe for your proposal, maybe for another proposal that was kind of meshed together. Um, but the symposia proposals you can make kind of your own, use their guide as a guiding path, and then honestly enlist one of us to kind of help us. This is what you want, right, Tara?
Yeah, kind of. I was also going to talk about what each IDN did, because I know, didn't you have like office hour type things with MCS?
Oh, we did. I don't know how successful they were. I don't know if we're going to do that again this year.
Okay, so it may look different.
But I will say that, like, you want to enlist other people, because what makes a symposia great is that, you know, we're 4% of the population here. So if it is really pharmacy focused, it's not going to be popular. So you have to, you know, enlist, maybe get help from one of us, or get help from your IDN, which can be a little daunting. We had like an office hours where you could pop in, and like we had various disciplines in there, and I would be like, oh, you know what, that's really interesting, but if you could add this little pharmacy piece, it might be interesting to pharmacists. And like, you know, the cardiologist would pop in and say, you know, actually this piece is really interesting to cardiology, why don't you add like a talk about this? So the more disciplines and people you can get to give you feedback on your symposia, the better it will be, the more likely it'll be accepted. And I think Tara's going to talk more about that.
Yeah, and so from like the heart perspective, because that's the one that I've been involved with in the past, they tend to invite certain people to be on these like period of Zoom meetings. And then if you have a proposal, but you weren't invited to that, you can still send it to that group. And then those people will kind of give you feedback and say, okay, we like the general idea here, but maybe you don't have enough variety from a generation standpoint, or maybe you don't have enough variety from a geography standpoint. So that leads to the next point about the 3 Gs, where they like to see variation in gender, generation, and geography. So as much as we all want to hear the experts tell us everything that they've learned over their years and years of practice, the society is trying to encourage early career groups and middle career groups to speak as well. So you may have one really big name who's been in practice for 20 plus years, and then you may have somebody who's only been in practice for 4 or 5 years, kind of sharing their experience and speaking on a different topic, all built into one symposium proposal. We don't want a whole panel of all men, the boys club, or we also don't want a whole panel of all women, although sometimes as a pharmacy group that seems to happen a little bit. We actually were trying to add men to our webinar we put together the last time. But so as you do it, you do want that variety. And like Amanda was saying, you don't want every single talk to be on drugs. So you may want to, you know, pair up with a pathologist who can give you some insight and put together some pathology type talk. And then a surgeon can talk about something, and then a pharmacist can talk about the drugs, and et cetera. So I'm going to show an example, and then I'm also going to have the program committee people talk, but that's kind of some of the things to think about. Typically each IDN, so lung, PVD, heart, and MCS will have some sort of, if it's not office hours, some sort of group way so that you can send it to them and get feedback and build and strengthen your proposal, rather than just doing it isolated in a solo by yourself, or by yourself and like with one other pharmacist, just to get that other feedback. The deadline is usually towards the end of June. I think last year it was like a week before the end of June. So it comes up really fast after the meeting. So start thinking about stuff and working on that right away. And then like Amanda said, the secret, if you include yourself and it's accepted, or if pieces of it are accepted, the committee will do their best to try to include you as well. So don't be afraid to include yourself, even if you don't feel like the biggest expert in the world. If it's something you're interested in and you think you could speak to it, you can put yourself down.
Can I just add something, Tara? Sorry, just
Yes.
so try not to leave it too late to send your proposals around, because the sooner you get sent to the IDN and get some feedback from the members of the IDN, the more time you have to then sort of refine it and get it to a really good place. Because obviously if you leave it to the last minute to get it sent around, you might not get as much feedback as you could from the members of the IDN.
Yes, that's a very good point. So when you see that deadline, try to work in getting something together a few weeks before that deadline so that you can send it out and get that feedback, because otherwise those IDN leaders, which Faye is currently, will get a flog of emails 2 nights before the deadline, and they don't have time to get it out to other people. And then you're only getting one person's input. Plus they're also flogged with work to do. If you want more information about how to put together a symposium proposal, Amy actually spoke on an ECTC webinar prior to the previous meeting and did a phenomenal job. So this is a summary of what she talked about, and I'm actually going to put the link in the chat to pull you straight to where that is. You don't have to even watch the whole webinar. You can just watch her little piece of it from the YouTube recording. And she goes through a lot of steps of how she's developed proposals and kind of pointers. So that I thought was really helpful. So look for that if you want more information. And so this is just an example. So this is something that I put together this past year and submitted with collaboration with the Heart IDN. I also reached out to Lung IDN. So there's some nuances to this particular proposal because of that. And then after the program committee members talk about their process, I'm going to show you what's on the final program because it doesn't look just like this. So just don't be surprised. And they're not going to comment on this one specifically necessarily, but just what happens in general. And so you can just assume some of those things probably happened. But pieces of this were included at least per the email that I got. It's like accepted in portion or something along those lines. So you come up with a title. Catchy is good. This may not be catchy enough. This isn't the title that was used, so that may be true or may not be. The thing that Amy points out in that recording is pay attention to the character counts, because you will go to put this into the final submission site and realize you have too many characters, and then you're up at midnight trying to crop it down every single time. So pay attention to that. But you'll put in a title, try to be catchy if you can, try to have a cute theme if you can. You don't have to go over the top though. There's a description in general about what the overall session is going to talk about. You'll choose your primary practice area, which for all of us is pharmacy. And then if you collaborate with anyone, or if it primarily relates to another group, you can include them as secondary, or you can just list out all the additional ones that might find it relevant, which hopefully is a lot. So think about, there's a lot of different groups that may find a topic interesting. Try to make that broad if you can. Primary core therapy is which of the IDNs, and then secondary, it's if it overlaps. It doesn't have to. So if you do like an LVAD topic, it may only really relate to MCS, although it may also relate to heart, kind of depending on how you look at it. Early career is whether or not it's focused specifically on early career. IDN involvement is if you did involve those IDNs in the previous step we talked about. So because I collaborated directly with the heart group, I listed them there. But if you didn't, you wouldn't list anything there. The discussion format basically says, will you have questions? Well, at least for last year's version, would you have questions right after each talk versus all together at the end? Some years they break it down different ways. So just pay attention to that when the information comes out. One year we had like game style and different things. So kind of depending what they plan, you might modify what options you have there. You don't always need anything in the additional comments section. I specifically did because when I was developing this with feedback, I kept getting mixed input. Some people felt very strongly that it should be both heart and lung. Some people felt very strongly that it really should be heart only. So I kind of wrote it as a both, but said maybe it should be separate and should just be only heart. So I just kind of gave that little bit of extra information to the program committee. I took out everyone's names that I had submitted because they may not have been used, and I didn't want it to like draw any attention to who did or didn't get used. But you submit 2 moderator suggestions and 2 alternates. So I just kind of listed out if it was male or female, and then in general what country they were from, and if they were like an MD, a surgeon, or a PharmD. So you can see I tried to keep this variable. I try to keep some people non-North America. And in case you don't know, Canada and US both get counted as North America. So if you pick somebody from Canada, that doesn't actually make the geography varied enough. So you still have to look outside of that. So then this breaks down into the different presentations. I think the total amount of time we had last year was 75 minutes, maybe. So I had 12-minute talks, but that can vary year to year. You don't have to have the full number of presentations you can have, but there's usually a max. So if you want to have shorter, longer talks, you can submit it that way. And so then this is what was initially submitted. So you'll put a talk title, again, a description of what that is. Again, pay attention to your character counts and try to have some speakers that are early career, some speakers that are not in the North America. So we had somebody from Norway here that we submitted. And then I had a lot of different input from different people who are not pharmacists. So some people were talking about, doing the HALT surgery to potentially help with antibodies. Obviously, we shouldn't have a pharmacist speaking about that. So different things in there, which again, may or may not finalize, get used, but this is the sort of thing that you want to put together. The more developed it is, the more likely they may pick and choose from it. And then it kind of just depends if they have overlap with other similar, or if it scores high and different things along those lines. So I think we have some of our program committee members on the call. So I'm going to try to turn it over to them to speak a little bit about what happens once it gets submitted.
Ed, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure, I can start. Hi, everybody. I'm Ed Horn. I'm at University of Pittsburgh Medical Center working in heart transplant, and this is my second year on the programming committee, so I'll be rotating off. And I was part of the MCS group, as you can see here. So, well, I think, in talking about the symposiums, the way we get them, speaking in generalities, things that kind of happen with them is that, even before we see what those look like, we have an idea from an IDN perspective of what we're trying to fill out, right? So for example, like in MCS, we will get, cardiogenic shock's really big. So we're gonna, focus some symposia on that. And then we're gonna, as well as other topics within that are relevant within that space. And then we take this, we'll look at symposia submitted and then see how they sort of fit, and then, you'll see, Tara kind of pointed out that, she submitted the symposia, which looks great. But then she noted that in the final program doesn't look anything like that. And things get kind of put in the blender. And you'll see how, when you're on programming, how those things kind of happen. I would say, I would echo a lot of things that Tara's already said about how to make a successful symposium, how to make it as close to what it looks like at the end of the day, in the final program, is all those things, the 3 Gs, having a wide variety of, types of participants from your different professional communities, as well as making it interesting and fun. Like, you want to design these symposia for things that you want to go see, right? So you might want to go see, debates are really popular. You might want to go see two people duke it out on stage about a controversial topic, which is always really fun. So those types of things, in designing these, the symposia, help make them successful. And then lastly, again, putting these things together, put yourself on them, either in a speaker slot or moderator spot, and it helps get your name out there, especially for your early career folks. Will really help, get you to get more opportunities at the annual meeting and within the organization. And I'll turn it over to Eric and Maddie for their comments on this process as well.
Go ahead, Eric.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey, everyone. My name's Eric. I'm one of the cardiothoracic transplant pharmacists at Stanford. This is also my second year doing it. Both times have been under the heart group. A lot of the stuff has already been said, but I think a lot of it, there is a final score that comes out based off of the symposium graders. And if there's some things that are similar, that's often whenever we will kind of merge them together, and that may see how you see things change around. I can tell you on the days when we're working on the final symposia, we're going through the list, or looking to see, if the speakers are members. So that's a huge thing. So do your homework before and check the membership directory, because that makes it a lot easier to not have who you wanted to be a speaker replaced. And then, like it's been mentioned multiple times, making sure you represent the Gs. But if you're submitting a symposium, you probably should put a pharmacist on there, because it makes it a lot easier to get us on. Oftentimes we're fighting to get on, but if the resistance is a lot less whenever there's already a pharmacist through the symposium submission. So, I'd like to have a pharmacist on every talk. Obviously, if we're talking about surgical techniques, I have nothing to say there, but that would be my other piece of advice. And working with other people, and then making sure you're, again, checking with non-pharmacists, because, you know, maybe we're all geeked out about, you know, daratumumab, but, you know, everyone else maybe doesn't care that much, right? So making sure you have a well-rounded talk, I think is really important too. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Maddie. I'm one of the lung transplant pharmacists here at Vanderbilt in Tennessee. And this was my first year being on the planning committee. It's been a really eye-opening experience seeing just like how everything comes together. And as Ed sort of alluded, how the originally submitted symposia really get like hacked up and torn apart. And I think it's good because there's such a diverse representation on the planning committee that you have everyone kind of competing for their own interests, which ends up with really diverse talks, but that is something to keep in mind when you're submitting. If you can make it really diverse from the start, it has a better chance of maybe staying more intact, kind of like they've been saying. And then I think it's already been said, but I did want to just reiterate that the survey that Tara sends out looking for interest was super helpful to me, because at the end there's a scramble to find like moderators who don't already have a role or are members. So if you want to be included in a meeting, make sure you fill out that survey that gets sent out, because I utilize that to help pick moderators for some of our sessions.
Yeah, thank all of you. I know you don't want to give away exactly what happens behind the scenes, but I think it's good to give people an idea of what you submit may just be too similar to what something else was submitted, or but some of that you can try to work on with the diversification and things like that. So this is just to show you again with the example, pulling up the final program. Best I can tell, these were the two that were related to antibodies that ended up on the final program. And neither of these is exactly what I submitted, but my assumption would be there were other similar proposals, and then they had to pick and choose what kind of was the priority items to talk about to cover as much content as you can without having a ton of overlap. Obviously, as much as AMR is a big topic for all of us, we don't want to have 5 or 6 symposia at the meeting about AMR, because we have too many other things that we need to cover as well. So as you can see, some of this may have come from that in some way, shape, form, or fashion, or could be, you know, some pieces that came from somewhere else, or even from the committee itself. They could have added a talk or something here and there as well. So
Tara,
that kind of, oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, if I can just add one thing real quick just to highlight something that both you and Faye kind of said earlier. So one, get started thinking about these early. So come back from Boston and start thinking about your symposia, because the turnaround time to get these things in is tight. Like you said, it's in June, right? So you're talking about May and June to get these things put together. So you want to, if you're thinking about submitting a symposia, do that. And then also working through the IDNs. Can't stress enough how important that is to kind of work these through different IDNs and different PCs, different professional communities, to try and get as much input as you can to create a nice, strong symposium. Sorry about that, Tara.
Yeah, no, and to reemphasize that IDN piece and kind of circling back to it can be a little bit intimidating. So if, say, you have a PVD idea and you don't want to go directly to the PVD IDN by yourself, you could reach out to Heidi and then she could be your representative there, or, you know, even Amy or somebody who's done it in the past as well, like MCS, Amanda. I'm for Heart for this year, and then Faye is still lung again for next year. She won't be the lung chair anymore, but she'll still be our pharmacy representative for lung. So you could reach out to any of us, and then as well as in people who have done some of these in the past. A couple of them, I think, said they were rolling off program committee, so they could potentially help. Again, nobody who's on program committee can help with symposium development on the year that they'll be on the program committee, but if they're rolling off, then that would be an open to be able to help with that submission. So please just ask, and then we can kind of go with you to the group or give you some feedback, or like forward it to on your behalf, that sort of thing as well.
And Tara, who would be their best point of contact? The ISHLT website to find our emails. Not sure that everybody's is on there, but what kind of direction can you give?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we should all be reachable within the ISHLT directory. You could actually just message us that way. So if you go in through ISHLT Connect, but we can also put our emails in the chat if everyone feels okay to do that. I'm okay with that. So I can put mine in that way. And then if you want to reach out to us, we would be happy to try to help. And that kind of wraps up everything I wanted to share specifically. I didn't want to put anyone on the spot and on camera who just kind of logged in today, but I was going to say, if you feel comfortable, at least putting your name in the chat, where you work, and kind of what IDNs you focus on with your practice. I think that way people may be able to see who else is out there in the pharmacy group and potentially connect about, you could see somebody works also in the same practice area. You might be able to consider working on a proposal as well. And also, we're open to take any questions. You can either put that in the chat as well, or you can unmute if you want to. But thank you all for joining today.
I was curious, those of you who are the representative to the different IDNs, like how you got that role and what you would recommend someone for, like, who would want to do that role in the future, kind of work on or do.
Yeah, so there is, as our time rolls up for getting off of an IDN representative, which I think is a 3-year term total, if I'm remembering correctly. So various of us roll off in different years. So as that rolls off, there will be a call for people to self-nominate, so like apply, so to speak. And then when you put in that application, there's usually questions about like what other things you've done in the society and why you think you would be a good fit for the position. So I think doing any of those steps that we talked about, reviewing abstracts, trying to submit symposium proposals, being on, hopefully by doing some of those pieces, you may get invited to the program committee. I'm actually not even sure who picks who gets invited to the program committee. I think that's a society higher level. That's a behind the scenes, I don't know the answer to, but if you get that opportunity, like Patricia said, as you get opportunities, say yes, and the more that your name gets out there, the more recognizable you would be. So then when you do have the opportunity to apply for one of those positions, you might get nominated. And then after you apply, this group, make sure everyone's Patricia's going to speak in just one second. The pharmacy PC group reviews those applications to make sure people are appropriate. And then we submit, our picks to the board of the applicants. And then there's a vote of all of the pharmacy PC members. And I'm going to let Patricia speak.
No, just in answer to your question about how people end up on program committee.
Oh,
it's the program chair picks. You have to have reviewed, only picked from people who've been reviewing abstracts. So that's why it's a really good thing to do. And reviewing abstracts, you can pick, very much what you want to specialize in reviewing. So lung or pediatrics or patient outcomes or whatever. You get about 40 usually to review. So it's actually not a terrible, workload. You get about 2 weeks to do it. And then the program chair has the say of who they want. So, but good things to do is to get your name, introduce yourself, turn up to things, say yes to things, because there's a few little sort of hidden jobs that people can get asked to do, like reviewing abstract presentations at the meeting, or roving reporter. Keep your eye out for that, because roving reporter is actually quite a nice one to do. And they often look for early career people for that, or people that are have a slightly different perspective. And all you have to do is, you get paid to go to the conference, and you just go to the talks and write little reports about them. It's a really cool job.
And one thing I was just going to shamelessly plug is being a reviewer is great, because we're probably better at reviewing our abstracts, and then that helps get our abstract scores higher, which means more oral and menu oral presentations that have to do with pharmacy. So I don't know how to not shamelessly plug that, but we should do that and be kind to your pharmacy professionals when reviewing abstracts if you want to see pharmacy talks.
Yeah, that's a great point, Eric. Stop killing your colleagues. Be kind. This is not like the abstracts that you're reviewing. You're not doing a review for an Impact Factor 15 journal.
Does anybody else have any questions? I'm trying to scan through the chat and see if anyone.
I have a question. Do you have
Yes,
to have like a large Twitter following to be a roving reporter? Because I don't have one, you know.
I don't think so.
I don't think many people do these days, do they?
That's
I don't think
Oh.
it's chosen on Twitter followers. It's chosen on your willingness to do it. And if you were doing something like Journal Watch, that would be in your favor.
Um,
You know,
Yeah,
so when Tara sent out those emails about Journal Watch, that's a good opportunity to participate.
yeah, I just remember last year I was getting like these Twitter notifications, and I'm like, oh my God, do I have to be a roving reporter and be on Twitter throughout the whole meeting? I didn't know.
I think, well, they may have you post on Twitter, but if you don't have a following, the ISHLT account can boost anything, you just tag them and they would boost it.
There we go. All right, gotcha.
And I think a lot of that stuff too then is like if you think of the write-ups for the roving reporter, like those were kind of disseminated like each day, right? And then the organization's kind of tweeting those out too, or whatever it's called these days. So yeah, you don't have to have a huge social media presence for that.
I'm seeing people from all over the place in the chat. So thank you all for joining. Thanks for sharing, where you work, what you do. Trying to make sure I'm not missing any questions on there. If you think of questions later, you can always post on Connect. You can post to us directly, or you can post to the larger group. And we hope to see you. If you're able to make it to Boston, we hope to see you on the Tuesday evening social. I'm not sure what its title of that evening get together is, but I think it will be I think it's meant to be fairly casual and just a little bit of a networking type of an environment. So we can also answer questions then too. I think we can probably wrap up if there's nothing more, but thank you all. Thank you to our program committee group that spoke up as well, and to all the rest of the pharmacy PC leaders. And thank you to everyone who joined it. Hopefully I'll see you in Boston.